Denver falls short versus Boston. That's disappointing. The second half was encouraging. Was it enough encouraging? Was it encouraging enough? Can the Nuggets play Russell Westbrook in the playoffs versus great teams?
Ooh.
Jamal Murray battles. Is Denver in Boston's weight class? We got more questions than answers up next here on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day, being with us Monday through Friday, being an everydayer, hanging out with us, and being part of our community. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I write a Substack called thedenverdig.com where you can read all sorts of stuff. I also write on lockedondaily.com for the Locked On Nuggets newsletter, which you can sign up for right now. We'll have coverage for you of the Celtics game, some more news and notes from that from me in your inbox on Monday. So make sure to sign up at lockedondaily.com. I'm wearing a dark blue t-shirt. Also wearing a dark blue t-shirt is Ryan Blackburn of Mile High Sports. We are both wearing dark blue t-shirts today, which I have their Nuggets colors. We'll just say that it's coordinated.
Sure.
Ryan's from Mile High Sports. You can catch the Pickaxe and Roll podcast daily on YouTube. You do shows on Sundays?
No, I generally try to do 4 to 5 shows a week. That's my goal with it. It's a lot, but we have fun and we have a good little community over there, and I'm very excited to always join my folks over there.
So for the deep statistical dives, you can catch Ryan Blackburn over there on the Pickaxe and Roll podcast. On today's show, we'll talk about the loss of the Boston Celtics, what it means, how it looked, all the different factors, the Russell Westbrook stuff, the Jamal Murray stuff, Jokic, etc. Okay. I'm trying to think what the biggest, you tell me, what is your biggest takeaway from this game?
I think that it's about the 7-point gap is about the gap that I would express for these two teams. I would say that the way that the Celtics were able to play today, they had a little bit more versatility. They had a little bit more just ways that they could go at Denver. And Denver, especially when you take away Aaron Gordon, and you don't even have to take away that many other guys, but you lose Julian Strawther during the game. He's already not a massive add to the rotation, but you remove him as well, and you start to see, man, this team just doesn't have a lot of spacing. They don't have a lot of help outside of the primary actions that they like to run. And the Celtics were able to really key in on a lot of those things and held Denver to 103 points. And I loved that Denver fought back. That's the most important thing outside of the end result. But the end result is the same, is that Denver probably just a little bit worse than Boston right now.
Yeah, it sucks because it's you feel like the team with Jokic and that has legitimate title aspiration should not be a good job, way to fight back, way to not just get completely steamrolled. Right. Yeah. But it really was pretty impressive because you're in an early start, you're down 20 on the road to the Boston Celtics, and a lot of teams just get creamed in that spot, but Denver did kind of crawl back. By the way, we're recording this after the Nuggets game. We want to give DNVR its usual space after the game. It'll be up there, so we are not going to respond to comments today if you're wondering why we're ignoring you. I will just go ahead and assume that you're all mad at Michael Malone. So I think it's interesting to look at kind of the gap between the two teams, because I honestly think that one of the things that is really fascinating is I think fans will walk away being God, Malone got outcoached. God, just didn't play Jalen Pickett enough. He played Russell Westbrook more than a minute.
Here's how I'm going to combat those takes. Guys, Christian Braun played 47 minutes today. He played 47. There is not enough optionality in Denver's rotation right now, and it's not Malone's fault. He's gone to Hunter Tyson before. He's gone to Jalen Pickett, and Jalen Pickett did give some good minutes, and I want to make sure to give him his due. He was great, but he's one person, and I assume that the longer that he plays, the more Boston will probably adjust to that. Russ started today, and I think that they probably should have played Zeke Naji more than Russell Westbrook. Not more than, but the proportions.
Yeah, I think he should have played. I don't think Russ should have played 35 minutes.
Yeah, Russ played 36. Zeke played 8. That's just the gap there is just not That's too much when you're looking for defense and athleticism and spacing.
Okay, so you can disagree with this as a fan, and I don't blame you because you're going to make decisions, not you, but the general you. You're going to make decisions based off of you watch the games, and here's what you see in the games, and Zeke is good, and Russ was bad, so Zeke should have played more than Russ, and I get that. I do. It's your right as a fan to disagree with this assessment. In games like this that you're playing in such a high pressure, this is a top-level game, national TV, they really wanted to win this one. You're trying to limit mistakes, and Zeke is still seen as a more mistake-prone player than Russell Westbrook, or DeAndre Jordan, or some of these other guys. Maybe not DJ. I think DJ, they're pretty honest about the necessity. I think DJ is just size. What?
No, it's just I think when we're talking about mistake-prone players, like Russ turns the ball over a ton. He is often very wild in some of his decision making.
I'm not talking about that though. Those are different types of mistakes. Like that's not
you're
we're talking
more
about.
Thinking like the stable things that coaches are looking for, executing different rotations, being in the right spot. And I totally understand that. And Zeke, I think, he still is going to have an upward trajectory to try to work his way through those things.
I've just gone so down into the weeds of trying to get as close to understand the game as much as possible. And the players will still say, I don't understand a damn thing. And that's fine. And I think they're right. I think they are right. But I try to get so close to it that I'm able to see like this decision and make it make sense. When I was closer to a fan side, I would have been like, this is just stupid. Malone's such an arrogant, bullheaded person not playing. Why did he play Russell Westbrook more than a minute? He missed a shot. Bench him. He missed a 3. And here's the thing. I don't think Russ is good for this matchup because the Celtics are a smart enough defense to where they're going to be like, hey, what if we put 6 people in the paint? What if we put everybody in the paint? Yeah. We're going to bring random Larry Bird's going to come in. He's going to stand in the paint as well. Antoine Walker is going to join us in the paint. And if you wonder why Jokic got no foul calls, it's because he couldn't engage fully ever because they were always around him with multiple guys. He can't put a shoulder into somebody because if he tries to, they're going to steal the ball when he's trying to move backwards. And so with that's why Joker doesn't get any free throws. Should he have gotten more than 0? Yeah, for sure. He drew fouls. Like he did draw fouls. He didn't draw shooting fouls.
Well, there's also the ones where he's on the perimeter trying to draw the fouls from the perimeter that other guys will get, smaller guys will get, and he just
you don't want those fouls called.
Well, I mean, I would like them not called at all, but they are. And that's the thing is like some guys are going to get them, and some guys just aren't.
But like with the Russ thing, I just think is look, the reason that I was never able to fully go in and be like the Nuggets have solved it, they've done it, is because of this. Yeah. Like this is why I was always like, guys, it's probably going to go south in the playoffs. I hate it. I want nothing more than for it to work.
Me too.
And if you're like, well, and some people think it's Russ's decision making. From Russ's perspective, if he punishes that drop, if he punishes it by making shots that he thinks he can make, he can't. If he makes those shots, they have to guard him, and now the spacing, and now he can make all those good plays that have led to the good Russ minutes. But he doesn't see an alternative to that. And honestly, this is kind of thing there isn't one. There's not a good solution here. There's not a good solution. If he shoots, it's a mistake. If he doesn't shoot, it's a turnover because he's passing into crowds. Does that make sense? Right? Like he can't spot up.
No, of course. And so my overall point with it, Denver used to have the personnel where if they had KCP, if they had like, even if Aaron Gordon played tonight while he's shooting 42% or whatever he is on the season, feels a little bit different when you're surrounding Russ with guys like that can space, that can punish that coverage, and then he can play his game a little bit better. The problem is Denver they play Christian Braun, and I thought that Christian overall had a really good game. But when you pair those two, it makes things so much more difficult against a playoff defense that is trying to funnel the ball their way every single time and force them to take those shots that are like C- shots every single time. And I thought Christian did a reasonable job. And again, like he gets a pass for me because he played 47 minutes. He shouldn't have to do that.
He was -2. He was great.
Right. Absolutely. Especially defensively, by the way.
We'll talk about I didn't think so. We'll talk about some of the complications from that. Plus we'll get into some of this. I'm also, if you're a Boston fan and you're listening in, I'm going to talk about your injury stuff on the other side. We'll talk about that too. Plus we'll get into some of the Jokic stuff, and MPJ struggles continue to be a problem. All that and more up next here on Locked On Nuggets. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I had a same game today on Denver for the over, Jokic 25 points, Derek White threes, and the Celtics on the money line. Only got home on White threes and the Celtics on the money line. The Denver defense did a much better job than I expected. The Boston defense did a much better job than I expected. And Jokic might have been limited with the injury, but he also just didn't put up enough points. But there's lots of opportunities. Did get in on Celtics on the money line, though, because I did not think Denver was going to win this game on an early tip out east. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us. Hope your Monday is off to a great start. This is No Jinx with Ryan Blackburn and Matt Moore, because we would never, ever, ever jinx anyone in a sporting contest. Okay, so Christian I thought was really terrific, and here's the this is the tough part for me. Christian somehow found a way to be really impactful. Cuts were great. Finishes were great. The and one off of that Jamal crazy pass was really awesome. He does all these really good things that are really impactful and really effective. I will go back and watch. I just didn't honestly notice him that much defensively. I'm sure you're right that he was great defensively. I just didn't notice that he was all that great. And so I think Swipe might be joining us here in a second. And so from that perspective, I get it. The 2 of 8 from 3-point range, to me, this is like, hey, Christian did so much to make up for it, but he is still part of the broader problem of Denver. He doesn't solve the problem that they have.
Right.
But he makes up for it enough with how awesome he's been as a finisher and playmaker and all of these things that he's done. Not playmaker, but like play finisher. All these things that he's done. Where it's like Christian like balled. Like he was great. He was terrific for them. But they can leave Russ open and Christian open, and that means you get this game plan.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to solve that other than the fact of like Russ or Christian can only be on the floor at once. And the problem really truly is both of them die without Yoke. Both of them. Like,
you know what? I don't know about that for Christian specifically. Like some of you look at the per 36 per 100 possession numbers with him without Jokic. He actually is productive. He actually does shoot the ball reasonably well. And if there is an argument for him to go to the bench when it's all said and done, it's probably that he just can actually survive in some of these ways without Joker that Russ just can't. And like we've seen that over and over and over again for this team so far. But like I just tend to think that Christian and where he's going, I have a higher opinion on the developments. And I love the idea and just the execution of him taking 8 threes tonight in a game where, hey, you are going to be challenged by this over and over and over again. Every single time, every Nuggets fan is going to be looking at, okay, yeah, Christian he went 10 of 14 against Detroit, but he shot 2 of 3 from 3. Oh, hey, he had a pretty good game plan against Indiana where he went 7 of 11 from the field and 0 of 0 from 3. He's got to work through the 3-point, man. Like that's the most important thing. And so taking these shots is important. And I like that they're going, like, you got to go through these struggles. You got to go through these things in order to be resilient on the other end, where when you are dared in the playoffs, in these playoff situations to take and make these kinds of shots, then you have to try, like you have to do it. And the difference between him and Russ is that Russ is now in his 17th season. We've seen the song and dance kind of play out, especially over these last few years. With Christian, there is still, and I'm doing the thing, and I know I'm doing the thing, but like you have to leave open the possibility and try to account for the possibility and make it happen. Like, and the way to do it is to try to get through it and develop it.
I just want to state this, like, just so we're absolutely clear on this, that Christian Braun going for 2 of 8 is good. Russell Westbrook going 2 of 8 from the 3 is bad.
They are exactly the same, but with different goals in mind. It's completely different to me.
Just saying. That's what we're saying is that Christian can go 2 of 8 and that is good, and Russ goes 2 of 8 and that is bad.
Here's the thing. the more that Christian goes 2 of 8, 2 things will happen. One, he will either continue to go 2 of 8 in those situations for the rest of his career, and then you can just shut down the idea of him being a 3-point spacer and being a real legitimate starting wing in the NBA as a result.
Yeah.
Or he gets better, and then he's a starting NBA wing for your entire future.
And you very fairly don't think that Russ is going to get better at it. I can't make an argument.
Is there a reason to believe that he will?
I mean, I think Jason Kidd is the answer there. That Jason Kidd eventually got to be a pretty decent 3-point shooter late in his career, and that
Russ made he made one in the 3rd quarter or 4th quarter today too, and like he has these moments, and he is shooting pretty well from the corners. I won't say that
he had that he had that stretch in November. This is what's always tough, man. Is like he had that stretch in November where he was making them, I get it. I don't disagree with your central premise. For me, it's more about. I think that you can have like Christian could have been a -2 could have gone from a -2 to a +12 if they have another shooter on the floor. Yeah. And Russ can go from by the way, Russ was only a -3 today. I think that's important to note.
Right.
Russ can go from a -3 to a +9 if they've got another shooter on the floor. It's the combination of both that I texted Ryan and Swipe of this. And I really did kind of mean it. Like, how did they win games when it was Russ and CB started? Like, I don't know how they won games. It's just like that's the NBA and unserious regular season.
The teams they played Toronto and Utah. That's what it was.
Yeah, I get it. So I think a fair question from fans is like, hey, he should have played other players more. And I'll say the question kind of always is, how desperate do you have to be to get away from your process and from your principles and from the ideas? Like, hey, you got to earn your way into these minutes. The veterans that have the trust of the locker room are granted them. Like, Malone does not operate in a meritocracy. He'll tell you always that he does, that it's like, you got to earn those minutes. That's a lie. Okay. And that's how Malone has survived this long in the NBA is you do have to manage those kind of things. I will tell you, in my opinion, it is not like the players in the locker room are like, why don't they play Jalen more?
Can I give you a take?
Yeah.
I think they should have closed with Zeke Naji over Mike.
Yeah. Yeah. Zeke not playing enough today. I didn't like the matchup for Zeke. I don't like him versus I especially don't like him at center. I get that everybody was like DJ was horrendous. DJ was absolutely awful for a minute. The rest of the time he was fine.
He was fine. It's unfortunate that's like, but it was a story at that point that like,
yeah, it was.
Sometimes like that's why you make the trade that you need to make at the deadline in order to get a guy that handles that stuff. And they weren't able to do it. Zeke has been so successful at 4 when people are like, why didn't you play him at 5? It's like, because the only way that he's been successful is when you play him at 4. Like all of this, he's been awesome at power forward. I guess my counter is that Boston is a different beast in that because they are so perimeter oriented that you just you're gonna switch and you're gonna guard.
But I guess here's the thing though, is like they're also such great passers and they're also really great at those cuts. So you need some rim protection. And I mean, look, here's the thing is like DJ didn't rebound either. I do have a question for you. Like, do you have more confidence in Zeke or DeAndre rebounding? I think it's close. I'm not saying it's not.
It's not close. DeAndre. I have way more confidence in DeAndre rebounding. Like that's the skill that he provides.
Right.
And if he's not providing it, then like you might as well go with the guy that can switch and guard on the perimeter if nobody's going to rebound.
And look, and I get the idea of people listening and being like, Matt, you'll just make excuses for Malone. It's more of a matter of I'm trying to think of it from a different perspective because I think that we always approach it. Media and fans approach this from this is not working, so don't do it again.
Yeah.
And I think that when you play as many possessions over as many games, because this is in their minds, like each game is a microcosm to us. And each game is part of a broad tapestry to the players and the coaches and the front office. And so it's like, all right, you don't give it a chance to improve if you don't allow it the opportunity. But the same can be said for Jalen, where it's like, look, man, what if Pickett's like the answer? You don't know because it's been good here for a little bit, but he's not in your circle of trust, as DNVR says. And I understand why he's not. And I understand all these type of mechanisms, but I do think that Russ presents a very specific problem that is hard. Like, this was always the issue with signing him. This was always the issue with signing him. If you sign him and you give him this kind of position and everyone raves about him, you have to live with stuff like this. You can't just take the good with Russ. You have to live with the bad. And ultimately, that's why he hasn't been worth it for these other teams. And I think that sucks, but it's true.
I do think that if there was a game to play Jalen, it was absolutely this one. Denver went with an 8-man rotation in this one and played Christian 46 minutes. Like, there should, under no circumstances in a regular season game, should you feel like that is the solution, in my opinion.
Okay, I'm gonna argue on that. This is the Boston Celtics. You're a national TV trying to go up against the defending NBA champions. This is the one game above all you want to not take chances on young players.
Christian's a third-year player.
And that's the exception to, and it's my exception every time everyone says, Malone never plays young players.
He played brilliant 14 minutes in the first half and then 1 minute in the second until
he got hurt. Yeah, and I think Julian, I'm really worried about that Julian Strother injury. Oh, I need to mention this. I didn't mention this. The Celtics were without Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday. Celtics fans are going to scream that to the top of their lungs. I will note that both those players have a negative on-court net rating since February 1st. I have been worried all year about Drew.
Yeah.
He is the one guy. Now, the playoffs may come and Drew may shoot 45% from the corners. That can happen. I love Drew Holiday. I would give an important organ for Drew Holiday. Not like the spleen, like something serious I would give for him.
Sounds dirty in some ways.
Watch yourself, young man. Gross. But I would say that Holiday is the one guy that I really have questions about and I think can be taken advantage of in the playoffs. I think that's going to be a storyline. So that one I'm not as concerned about. I'm not saying they're better without Drew. I am kind of saying they're better without Drew versus this team.
Well, yeah, against this team, because we should on the other side we should talk about Murray a little bit, and we've also we got a special guest in the waiting in the wings over here.
He missed the Russ conversation though. We didn't let him yell about Russell Westbrook.
Oh yeah.
We'll go back to it. We'll go back to it. Well, maybe we'll go.
Great.
All right, we'll do that on the other side here on Locked On Nuggets. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save, thanks to Dash Pass. Every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 24-25 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. You can do stuff like, how about if you're, I always am up late working. If you're staying up late watching highlights or just need a midnight snack, you can use Dash Pass to grab something delicious while saving big. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off and order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50 from noon. It's got to be noon to midnight the day after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, joined by Swipa, 3-man crew here for the final segment.
Let's go.
After he finished his post-game show, you can catch out his post-game show every day at youtube.com/SwipaCam and on his Twitter account at SwipaCam. And on the Player's Choice, you can catch his takes almost every day.
Player's Choice. It's not like a gentleman's club. It's called Player's Choice. I think the Player's Choice is probably a gentleman's club somewhere.
That sounds like a pretty cool place to be.
Did I not say Player's Choice? I thought I said Player's
Choice.
You said
the Player's Choice. I'm saying that's probably it's probably a gentleman's club. So don't look up the Player's Choice.
Gotcha. All right.
Like if you say like Onyx, Onyx is a Pokemon. Don't say go to Onyx. You know what I mean? Onyx.
So we've talked about a lot of the negative already, which I'm sad that you missed because I feel like we have to touch on Jamal real quickly.
You two are negative Nancy's, not me. Remember, always remember that.
I'm sure the timeline would absolutely argue that.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, that's
No
exactly what
way,
the timeline
dog.
says.
Objectivity and negativity are not the same thing, by the way.
Oh, I see. Give us your thoughts on Jamal's bounce back.
I thought his second half was spectacular, and I told you, and I know y'all know when. And Matt, let me because you've been covering the team for even longer. You've been covering the team since Jamal Murray was in middle school. So, what moment do you think was the one that woke up Jamal? Matt first, because I know you know it. You probably know it, but Matt, I want to see if you noticed it.
I actually have been covering Jamal since middle school, or covering basketball since Jamal was in middle school. Oh God. Oh God. Who is he John at? He was John at somebody.
Tatum.
It was Tatum. That's who it was.
Yeah. I think that's literally what happened. I think, Murray was trying to coast through like probably had a little bit of back spasms, I think is what it would be noted as among NBA circles or something like that. And so I think
was he out in the fun streets of Boston the night before?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying he clearly was not the same engaged Murray in February. And then all of a sudden that whole little incident happens and he's like, okay. And then he has 22 points and 6 assists in the second half on 10 of 16 from the field.
A couple of things that they did to from a game plan perspective. I understand everybody's complaints about the rotation minutes. You can say that Malone had a bad game from a rotation perspective, and I will quibble with you based off of certain things that are facts about life in the NBA. But I think from a game plan standpoint, their second half game plan was phenomenal. When they started off and drop, I was like, oh God, but they tightened up so much by playing higher drop. Offensively, they ran clear outs in high pick and roll, which meant that Murray got to get to that baseline fadeaway. When you give him that kind of space to operate, that opens up a lot for him when he's not trying to navigate through the help off the crash and all these other types of things. Like that to me was a huge thing that got him going. Nuggets second half game plan was absolutely terrific. Like from a game plan perspective, I liked what Denver did in this game, even if the rotations weren't what they needed because they don't have the personnel.
The other thing that I'd point out is, especially defensively, I thought Murray was terrific in that second half. Like they tried to make a point, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum did, in going at him, isolating, trying to get to the nail or to the post, and trying to go through him on a consistent basis. Yeah, he gave up a couple baskets here or there, but for the most part, I thought he did a really good job holding up on that front. And it got him going in that third quarter where the 2 stops and the 3 that he had was where it really started to turn for him, I think. So he can't it's, I think, a important reminder that he can do that. Back in the championship run, like that was the big thing, was that he was able to hold up in isolation a lot of the time. The only guy that he really struggled with was LeBron. And that was because LeBron is a tank. So the fact that he's able to do that, the fact that he's able to kind of be healthy enough, knock on wood, to do that, I think is very important.
I would also say that because I get why we index a lot on the 2023 run, but we also got to look at last year. Cat destroyed him in those matchups.
Okay, fair. Karl Anthony Towns is also like a 7-footer. So,
well, that's one, but I'm saying, like Ryan, where they're going to see that in the playoffs. Like that's going to happen. I will say in this matchup, it's totally great. Like this is what I'm begging everyone to do. Jaylen Brown wants to take post up fadeaways all day, man. As long as you're not letting Derek White shoot open threes, it's fine. Yeah. And Denver's entire problem was the first half. There's always, I think, a little bit of a system shock playing Boston. And this used to be the same way playing Denver. Sadly, it isn't anymore. But it used to be this way in the 2023 run. This is how it felt, where teams would come in and be like, oh, God. Like the first 5 minutes, they were totally lost. And Denver was totally lost the first 5 minutes. And I will say also, like, Jamal gave up a bunch of threes in that first, 8 minutes of the game. And that's a big reason the league already got built. So, there's that. But I thought Jamal's battle the second half, defensively, offensively, going back at them, navigating, forcing the issue, finding space. I thought Jamal was incredible in that second half. Swipe. If I told, let me take a different approach here. If I told you Russ has to play 30 minutes, you can't bench him. I know that they should. But if I told you they can't, what do you do? Do you stick him with the bench and just try and be like, let's get all the fat out at once?
No, you get the bad out with Jokic to mitigate the bad. I think I'm on the side of, if you're going to play him, which I think he should play, but I think my thing is process. Russ is an incredibly talented player and smart. But what's happened in the last 12 games? Prior to this game, I tracked this for the last 11 games. He's averaging 3.8 turnovers a game in the last 11 games prior to today.
It's too high.
What I'm saying is, like, that's process. He wasn't doing that prior to that stretch. He has blanked out in terms of, this is what winning basketball is in this context. I am no longer doing that. And some of this is, I think he's trying to prove a point more to the defense now, based on how he's being covered. And I'm saying previous to that, he was proving a point to the Nuggets that I can involve myself in the best play possible. And they were winning those minutes. And I think something happened from the All-Star break to now, to where now it's like Russ is seeing the teams are funneling him towards, you take the shot and you create. And he's saying, okay, watch me do it. And I'm saying that not only is it just the missed shots, it's the missed shots off the long rebounds to leading out to runouts. It's the missed shots, or it's the turnover live ball leading out the readouts. Or what's happening is you're missing a shot, and then now we're not getting opportunities for higher, more efficient, easy baskets from Jokic, Murray, or Porter. And I think that's where it's a 3-layer problem. Russ has to see the forest through the trees. That if I turn this down, we will probably get a better look. I just have to be willing to concede this play, even if it feels open.
We're going to take a break. We're actually going to end this episode and do a bonus episode, because I want to talk to the guys some more about this one. This one's been so good. So we're going to take, if you're in the podcast, there'll be a bonus episode up after this that you can go ahead and listen to. There's another video on youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets that you can catch. That's a bonus episode where we talk more about this game to wrap up. But that'll do it for this edition of Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys again next time on Locked On Nuggets.